A 76-year-old man once told me he felt like a ghost in his own skin. His heart still beat, his blood still flowed, but something vital had gone quiet. He wasn't sick. He wasn't dying. He had simply stopped caring for a part of himself that no one ever talked about, the part that speaks in silence, in memory, in touch. I'm Dr. Nolan, and today, we're going to talk honestly about the quiet health routines that most older men still carry, and how, with just a little understanding, they can either help you thrive or quietly wear you down. There's something many men carry into their 60s and 70s without realizing it, the assumption that what worked in their body decades ago should still work now. That the way they unwind, the pace at which they stimulate pleasure, or even the rhythms of their emotions should stay unchanged. But inside, the body has been quietly shifting its instructions. Blood vessels have become less elastic. Nerve signals take longer to travel. Circulation slows by an average of 21% between 60 and 75, and those changes aren't just theoretical, they're deeply felt. Even if no one explains them. A man might notice that what once brought release now brings fatigue. What once felt calming now sometimes leaves him restless. But instead of understanding it as biology, he wonders if something is wrong with him. He doesn't say it aloud, but he feels it a kind of distance from his own body. At this age, the heart and vascular system begin to react differently to emotional and physical arousal. Late-night stimulation without awareness can elevate nighttime blood pressure, reduce melatonin release by nearly 32%, and impact sleep cycles. It's not about stopping, it's about adapting. Slower breathing, intentional timing. Hydration beforehand, all of these signal to the body. I'm still paying attention to you. And sometimes the most powerful shift isn't physical, it's internal. It's the moment an older man realizes, maybe it's not that I'm broken. Maybe I just need to treat this body like it's new again. Have you ever asked yourself if your routines are helping you feel more alive or just repeating something you no longer fully feel? Because after 60, familiarity can be a comfort, but presence is where real health begins. There's a moment in many men's lives, usually after 65, when a familiar habit suddenly leaves them short of breath. Not dramatically, not dangerously, just off. Maybe the chest feels tight for a few minutes afterward. Maybe sleep doesn't come as easily. Maybe there's a slight pressure behind the eyes. It's subtle, but the body always tells the truth. The truth is, what once brought relief at 30 may now quietly raise your systolic pressure by 10-15 points if done at the wrong time or in the wrong way. The heart, after 60, wants a different rhythm. It still responds to pleasure, but it doesn't want surprise. It doesn't like the sudden spikes. It's no longer built for late-night overdrive. By 70, the cardiovascular system loses up to 14% of its efficiency in regulating pulse recovery after physical stimulation. That means it takes longer for your heart rate to return to baseline, and if you're alone, if you're dehydrated, or if your blood vessels are already narrowed, that recovery can become sluggish. Not dangerous overnight, but cumulative. Silent. One man I cared for used to joke that he knew exactly how long it took his heart to settle 3 deep breaths and a glass of water. But in his 70s, that formula stopped working. He felt tired after, not restored. That was his body saying, "I've changed. Why haven't you?" The good news is the heart listens. When stimulation is approached slowly paired with hydration, breathwork, and calm surroundings, heart strain drops significantly. Men over 70 who maintain slower, Intentional routines report 23% better heart rate variability. And that number isn't just a statistic, it's an indicator of resilience, vitality, and even longevity. But here's the deeper question. Have you ever stopped to ask if your habits today are tuned for the body you have now or the one you used to know? Because the heart isn't asking you to give anything up, it's asking you to notice it again. One of the quiet myths that lingers into older age is that hormones shut down like a switch, that once a man turns 65, testosterone vanishes, and there's nothing to be done. But the truth is, hormones don't disappear. They respond. And if they're ignored, they don't scream. They simply fade into the background, taking vitality, motivation, and clarity with them. Testosterone in men between 60 and 80 declines gradually, but its production remains highly sensitive to emotional connection, physical rhythm, and internal balance. Gentle arousal, regular movement, and adequate sleep all signal the endocrine system to keep going. In fact, when men maintain a rhythm of consistent, non-stressful body engagement, even just once or twice per week, their testosterone levels stabilize up to 23% higher than peers who disengage entirely. But it's not just testosterone. Cortisol, the stress hormone, creeps in as testosterone lowers. And when cortisol dominates, sleep becomes shallow, sugar cravings spike, and memory begins to blur. That's why some men in their 70s describe a strange mental fog, less focus, more irritability, nights of broken sleep, and mornings of slow starts. It's not just aging, it's hormonal imbalance, and it's often preventable. What many don't realize is that even emotional intimacy, touch, trust, breath shared with yourself can shift hormone regulation. Oxytocin rises, melatonin deepens, and the body begins to feel safe again. That's when restoration happens, not during performance, but in presence. I once asked an older man what made him feel alive lately. He paused and said, "Nothing rushes me anymore. I let my body lead." That single sentence said everything. So here's something worth asking in your own quiet moments. When was the last time you treated your hormones like messengers and not just background noise? Because they haven't stopped talking, they're just waiting for you to listen differently. At 40, the mind is fast. At 60, it's deep. And by 70, it becomes incredibly honest, quietly cataloging what we repeat, what we rush, and what we avoid. Even when we think we're alone, the brain is always watching, and not just observing, but learning, reinforcing, wiring itself around how we treat our bodies, our emotions, and our attention. Older men often tell me they don't feel much after certain routines anymore, that the sense of release is dull. The moments feel automatic, but they rarely ask why, and the reason is deeply neurological. After 65, the dopamine receptors that once lit up during stimulation require more meaningful context to activate fully. Repetition without reflection blunts them. Instead of release, we get flatness. Instead of satisfaction, we feel vaguely agitated or numb. And when this becomes a pattern, the brain adjusts downward, lowering dopamine availability by up to 26% over time. It's not age alone, it's emotional absence. The good news is presence restores chemistry. Men who shift their mindset from routine to ritual, from habit to connection, see a remarkable rebound. Oxytocin increases. Memory circuits reawaken. Emotional balance improves. In one study, men aged 70-80 who practiced slower, Mindful self-care saw a 19% boost in short-term recall and sharper attention within 12 weeks. The brain doesn't just want stimulation, it wants meaning. And when it doesn't get it, it quietly rewires itself for less and less. So ask yourself, am I just repeating what I've always done, or am I still choosing it? Because your brain is listening. And how you touch your life now is how your mind will remember it later. It usually starts around 2 a.m. You're awake. You're not sure why. The room is still, but something inside isn't. Maybe your chest feels warm, your mind slightly restless. You try to drift back, but it takes longer than it used to. By morning, you're groggy, unrefreshed, and wondering if it's just part of aging. But here's what most men don't realize: those small, late-night habits that once helped you relax may now be interfering with the very rest they were meant to support. After 60, the body's ability to regulate cortisol, the stress hormone, becomes more fragile. When stimulation is rushed or performed without care, cortisol can spike instead of fall. And when that happens close to bedtime, melatonin, the hormone that tells your brain it's safe to sleep, is suppressed by as much as 32%. That's not theory. That's why you're tossing and turning. Men in their 70s who shift their rhythm, choosing earlier evening routines, using breath to slow the pulse, and taking time to fully return to stillness, report 41% fewer nighttime awakenings and deeper stages of sleep. Not because they gave up on touch or comfort, but because they redefined what it meant. I spoke with a widower once who said, "I thought I was soothing myself, but I was actually revving my engine right before trying to sleep." That insight changed everything for him. So here's a quiet question for the end of your day. Are you preparing your body for peace or rushing it into a night it can't recover from? Because pleasure that doesn't respect rhythm isn't soothing, it's exhausting. You finish dinner, the house gets quiet, you settle into your chair, maybe reach for the remote, maybe for something more private. A few hours later, without much thought, you're in the kitchen, the cookie tin, the crackers. That piece of chocolate you swore you'd save for Sunday. It happens fast, but not without reason. What most people don't realize is that the body's hormonal landscape after 60 changes dramatically at night. Melatonin levels fall earlier. Insulin sensitivity drops by nearly 38% between 9 p.m. and 2 a.m., especially in adults over 70. And when the nervous system is activated without emotional grounding, the body seeks compensation. It wants something sweet, not just for the taste, but to soothe the nervous system that was stirred and never settled. For many older adults, especially women living alone, this moment becomes a cycle: stimulation, followed by cravings, followed by poor sleep. Over time, this pattern leads to blood sugar spikes, fatigue the next day, and subtle changes in mood. But it can be reversed. Gentle hydration after dinner, ginger tea before bed, a quiet stretch on the living room floor. These are not grand solutions, but they shift the chemistry. In one small study, older adults who replaced late evening snacks with warm herbal tea and calming breathwork reduced nighttime cravings by 52% within 2 weeks. A woman in her late 70s once told me, "I thought I had no willpower. Turns out, I just needed to be kinder to my evening." So maybe ask yourself, are those cravings about hunger, or are they your body's quiet way of asking for calm? Because when sweetness comes from stillness, not sugar, the body learns to rest again. He didn't say much anymore, not out of stubbornness, but fatigue. At 80, he had meals prepared, medications lined up neatly in a tray, and a television that stayed on long after he'd stopped watching it. What changed, his daughter wondered, wasn't his body, it was his presence. Something in him had gone quiet, and she couldn't quite name it. He smiled when she visited, nodded, answered questions, but the warmth was thinner. His eyes drifted faster. His sleep was shorter. His blood pressure had dropped below safe levels twice that month, and the doctor called it age-related dysregulation, but she knew it wasn't just physical, it was something else, something internal. A part of him had disconnected. What she didn't know, and what he never said, was that after his wife passed, he had let go of a quiet part of himself, the nightly rituals, the sense of being wanted, even by his own body. He thought it was inappropriate to continue, that maybe dignity meant abstaining, but what he didn't realize was that those moments of self-attention weren't about youth. They were about circulation, memory, and emotional rhythm. When he stopped, his body didn't just grow stiff, it grew uncertain. His digestion changed. His blood pressure dropped more often at night. His sleep became fragmented, all without warning. And what brought him back wasn't medication, it was her. She began cooking for him, walked with him in the afternoons, helped him wash his face gently before bed. Slowly, he returned, not all at once, but enough. Enough to want to dress himself again. Enough to shave. Enough to meet her eyes when she said, "I missed you, Dad." Sometimes, the first thing that revives an older man isn't a pill or a plan. It's being reminded that he's still worth caring for, that he still has a body, a mind, and a presence that matter. So if you felt yourself pulling away quietly from your own reflection, ask gently, am I withdrawing because I'm tired or because I've stopped treating myself like someone worth returning to? Because often, the body doesn't ask to be healed, it asks to be seen. We often talk about circulation and aging as if it's a man's issue, but for women, especially those over 65, the changes are just as powerful and often more invisible. After menopause, estrogen levels drop by more than 50%. That shift doesn't just affect mood or sleep, it changes how blood flows through the body, how bones retain calcium, how muscles repair after movement, and how stable the mind feels at rest. Most women never hear this directly. They notice it in other ways. A feeling of stiffness in the morning, a little more hesitation going down the stairs, that second cookie they never used to want before bed, and quietly, they begin adjusting less movement, more sitting, fewer walks, not out of laziness, out of subtle instability they don't know how to name. But here's what's so often missed: circulation supports bone, and bone supports confidence. Older women who maintain gentle, rhythmic movement, stretching, walking, even regular foot massage show up to 34% better calcium retention and stronger femoral density. It's not about fitness. It's about signaling to the body, I still use this. I still need this. Don't let it go. And for those who continue private routines of touch or intimacy, circulation in the pelvic region improves by nearly 29%, which helps regulate blood sugar, supports sleep, and eases nighttime joint pain. I once cared for a woman in her 70s who said she felt foggy and brittle. She wasn't depressed, she was disconnected from the parts of her body she had once taken for granted. But when we reintroduced small daily rituals, hand cream in the morning, Soft music and gentle movement in the evening, her gait improved. Her sleep deepened. Her appetite returned. Not because of a drug, because her body remembered being cared for. This isn't about vanity. It's about vitality. You don't lose your strength all at once. You lose it quietly, when you stop treating your body like something sacred. So if you've been wondering why your bones ache a little more, why your balance feels just slightly off, ask yourself, have I let stillness replace circulation? Or can I begin again gently, patiently, with movement that reminds my body it still belongs to me? Because even after menopause, even after 70, even after grief, your body will respond to kindness. Late at night, it's easy to reach for a screen. It feels harmless, just a few minutes of distraction before bed. Maybe a short video, maybe something private, maybe a scroll through memories that aren't yours. But what starts as a moment of relief often becomes a habit of retreat. And over time, the body begins to respond not with pleasure, but with withdrawal. After 70, the brain's plasticity, the ability to form new, healthy neural pathways, declines by nearly 18%. That doesn't mean learning stops, but it does mean the brain becomes more sensitive to what we feed it. Fast-moving visuals, loud noises, artificial stimulation, these flood the brain's reward system in ways natural life no longer can match. The result? Numbness, flatness, a strange disinterest in real connection. Men who use screens as their main source of stimulation after 65 often experience a subtle drop in touch sensitivity and a 22% reduction in natural dopamine response. They don't feel broken, they just feel faded, and they rarely connect it to the screen. I once worked with a man in his late 70s who said he felt muted around real people. He couldn't quite feel joy, or even sadness, with the same depth. But when we looked at his routine, it was clear 3 hours of screen use before bed, every night, for nearly 4 years. That wasn't a mistake. It was a survival tactic for loneliness. But it was costing him his presence. When he stepped away just for a week, the first thing he noticed wasn't boredom, it was restlessness. Then came dreaming, then came music, then came the memory of his wife's laugh, not from a photo, but from his own mind, reawakening. If your nightly habits leave you more drained than restored, ask yourself gently, am I connecting or escaping? Because when the screen becomes a substitute for sensation, the body doesn't rebel, it retreats. And reclaiming it starts not with guilt, but with grace. He had folded away that part of his life like an old shirt, clean, quiet, no longer worn. After his wife passed, there was no one to talk to about the silence. No one to ask whether he still felt touch in his fingers. He still made his tea, took his pills, watched the evening news. But what vanished wasn't routine. It was rhythm. At 80, he told me he hadn't felt much in years. He said it without sadness, just a kind of polite surrender. But something shifted the day he started walking again, just 15 minutes around the block. The day after, he lit a candle before bed. Then, he paused longer during his morning wash. A week later, he began breathing more slowly when he lay down at night, not out of duty, but curiosity. What he didn't know was that his circulation had quietly improved. His resting heart rate dropped. He began sleeping deeper. And his glucose levels, the ones that had crept too high for too long, started to ease. Not because of medication, but because his nervous system was finally being asked to feel again. The body Even at 80 remembers, and so does the spirit. It remembers the small routines that made him feel human. That said, you still matter. That acknowledged that health after 80 isn't about youth, it's about return. To breath, to warmth, to dignity. When I saw him again, he smiled differently. He said, "I thought that part of me was gone, but I was just waiting for someone to remind me it was still there." So if you're listening now, whether you're 60, 70, or already into your 80s, and you've quietly stepped back from a part of yourself, ask this: have I truly lost it? Or have I just stopped visiting it? Because it's still there, waiting, not for permission, but for presence. If you've made it this far, I want to pause and say something you may not have heard enough. Thank you. Not just for listening, but for being willing to look inward, to reconsider what it means to stay alive in a body that's changing. This isn't about shame. It never was. It's about reclaiming parts of yourself that time, silence, or grief may have buried. The parts that still respond to touch, to rhythm, to kindness, not because you're trying to hold on to youth, but because you still belong to yourself. Whether you're living alone, caring for a partner, or just quietly adjusting to the pace of your 70s or 80s, the invitation is the same: care doesn't expire, and neither does dignity. If this made you reflect today, let someone else feel that too. Share it. Because next, we're opening a conversation that even fewer men have had out loud: private health lessons men over 60. Regret missing. It's not about what's gone, it's about what you still have time to protect. And I'll walk you through each one. I'll see you there.